welcome everyone to tonight's Community School Town Hall. Thank you for joining us this evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Stacy McAdoo. I am a lifelong resident of Little Rock, your forever 2019 Arkansas Teacher of the Year, and a licensed educator since 2002. I've been a part of the Little Rock School District family for a long time, about 25 years or so as a student, an educator, and a parent. Community schools make sense to me because as COVID-19 has shown the world, school is so much more than academics. Every educator who has ever taught any student knows that a lot of out-of-school factors such as a child's health, their diet, their support system, and their access to resources affects his or her learning and their academic achievement. I am excited about the opportunity to build upon and strengthen existing community partnerships and to create new relationships so that we can establish a more streamlined, strategic model to better educate and take care of the whole child. Before I turn it over so that we can get this show on the road, I'd like to thank the partner groups that have stepped up to co-sponsor the town halls. Put your right hand up. Now put up your left hand. Introduce them to one another, and let's give a round of applause to the Central Arkansas Library System's Hillary Rodham Clinton Children's Library, the Urban League of Arkansas, the League of Women Voters of Pulaski County, Arkansas Advocates for Children and Families, Arkansas United, and the City of Little Rock's Commission on Children, Youth, and Families and Community Programs. And finally, I would like to encourage you, each and every one of you here with us this evening, to ask questions and share your thoughts and input after the presentation. All right, Dr. Barth, take it away.
All right, good evening. I'm Dr. Jay Barth. I'm the Chief Education Officer for the City of Little Rock, and we're thrilled that you're here for an evening to learn more about our vision of a partnership between the Little Rock School District and the City of Little Rock in our community schools model. I'm here with Mr. Darian Smith, who is Executive Director for Elementary Education with Little Rock School District, and we're thrilled that you've joined us this evening. I want to thank Stacy McAdoo, who is a wonderful gift to the city and to the Little Rock School District, and I thank her for her commitment to the vision of community schools. I also want to join her in thanking all of the co-hosts, the partners in tonight's program who have stepped up to bring some of y'all to join in the conversation tonight. This is very much going to be a conversation. We're looking forward to your questions, your comments about what we have to say about community schools here in Little Rock. And so type that either in the chat section on YouTube, or if you're on Facebook Live, you can type the comments there and they will get over to me so I can get them. And we'll do our best to communicate. There will be a second town hall next Thursday, the same time, same station, and so please feel free to join us there. You know, I've been the Chief Education Officer for the City of Little Rock for about 6 months now, and under Mayor Frank Scott Jr., our vision is really a whole community, whole student approach to education. We are very clear that the job of running schools is in the hands of the schools themselves. School districts, private schools, charter schools, and the institutions of higher learning across our city. But we also know that a city is healthy only when its schools are healthy. Therefore, the city we see as having a duty to support the students of our community in allowing them to live up to their full potential across a lifetime of learning, from birth through higher education. And a whole community exists only when students are whole, and whole students can only thrive in a supportive community. And the City of Little Rock supports this positive educational environment both through the programs of our own, but also through promoting rich partnerships with and among the entities in the educational, nonprofit, and business sectors. the scope of my duties really do go from birth through higher ed. But what we're here to focus on tonight is what's at the heart and soul of my work as Chief Education Officer, and that's really our focus on our partnership with the Little Rock School District and being sure that that whole community, whole student approach comes to life in community schools here in this city. And so that's going to be the focus of our conversation tonight, the community school model. And we really want to be sure that everyone, as we go into this endeavor, really has a good feeling for what the community school model is. And the community school model really has 4 primary pillars. The first of these is being certain that there are individualized wraparound services that really meet the needs of our students. That might be behavioral health services, mental and dental and physical health services. It might be other aspects that really reach around the student and provide them the support so that they can be the best they can be, so that they are not distracted from some of those other distractions that are a part of their daily lives. The second pillar, in addition to that, is recognizing that the school day doesn't just last from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m., and the school year doesn't just happen from August to May, but instead that we have to expand the school day and the school year with enriching after-school and summer programming. That might be our work in the summertime with literacy programming, such as the Frankly Reading Literacy program that is going to happen most summers. Unfortunately, because of COVID, that didn't happen this summer, but we are working on literacy instead in a different way with the district. It might be dance classes that enrich students' lives. It might be after-school cooking classes. Those might be the kinds of after-school and summer programming that really enrich students and allow them to continue to learn outside of the traditional school day and school year. The third part of the community school model, though, is in some ways some of the most exciting work. And that's a recognition that the neighborhoods, the communities around the schools also need to be enriched. And that those parents and community members around the school, they have needs also that need to be met. This might be legal services that provide them some assistance as they're dealing with issues related to their lives as renters. This might be family cooking classes so that those families can learn to shop in a more healthy manner, cook in a more healthy manner. Importantly, whether it's about those wraparound services for students, whether it's about those after-school and summer activities, or whether it's about those things that really make the community and neighborhood around that school more healthy, those are going to be different in every school. And so what's super exciting about the community school model is that every school that is a community school is going to look different in terms of these services that wrap around. Now, this is doing nothing to replacing high quality teaching and learning that's happening inside those schools. Instead, this is providing those supports both for the students themselves and for the folks with whom they live in their communities, the kinds of things they need so that those students can be the best they can be in that high quality teaching and learning atmosphere. The fourth pillar of the community school model is a recognition that, especially when it comes to the first 3 pillars, that we need more ongoing voice from teachers, from students, from parents, from community members to guide that work. Yes, at the end of the day, the principal of that school is the school leader. But especially when it comes to these first 3 pillars, there needs to be more voice for those folks. And so it's a different kind of leadership style in community schools than in a traditional, more hierarchical approach that we have historically seen in a lot of our schools. And so those are really make up the 4 pillars of the community school model. Now, what's exciting about the community school model is that we're really starting to see the success of this model in schools around the country with high quality research that is really showing how well these schools work. and this is happening all over the country. The most kind of comprehensive study is a study that was released a few months ago from the RAND Corporation, which really studied the community school model as it's played out in the city of New York. And the city of New York has made a major investment in community schools. I think they have about 130 community schools at present. And the RAND Corporation looked at those schools, asked the question, what's working in them, and really found several things. First, they found that pretty quickly, absenteeism rates started to drop in those community schools as compared to schools that are very similar to them that are not community schools. Second, they found that disciplinary infractions began to drop in those community schools compared to other schools. They also found that students began to stay on grade level, kind of making progress year to year. And finally, after 2 or 3 years, they began to see that test scores rose. Now, a couple of things about this. First, it's real evidence of success. It's also real evidence that this is not going to be an immediate silver bullet to solving all of our challenges facing schools in our community that are most challenged. Instead, these are the blocks in the pathway towards that ultimate academic success, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But there is really good evidence that the community school model works. And that means, because of this success, this research-based success, that allows federal dollars to begin to be used for community schools in a way that wasn't the case a few years ago. And that's super exciting for allowing the sustainability of community schools. Well, what have we found out about community schools and thinking about their introduction to Little Rock? Mr. Smith, myself, a number of other folks, teachers, parents, other district leaders, took two trips to really look at two very different approaches to community-based education. The first trip that the 8 of us took was to Shreveport, to Caddo Parish schools. The Caddo Parish schools have a model that is known as the Community in Schools approach. It is an approach that very much focuses on the case management of the 10 or 12% of students in that school that have shown a real history of needing support in their lives. And these case managers really connect those most challenged students with services outside the school that will allow them to be their best. Okay? That case management approach is really at the heart and soul of the Communities in School model. All the students in the school get some kind of baseline of services, but there's a real attention to that case management approach. The team that came back, I think, was drawn to the case management approach in many ways, but really felt that there was something missing in terms of the school being seen as a real hub for that community, offering this variety of services at that school that would be available to folks really across the neighborhoods and communities. And so for that reason, we took a second trip. We went out to Albuquerque to take a look at the Albuquerque public schools. Same group of folks went out, so there was a real comparative approach to this. The Albuquerque schools, I think, really put a great deal of focus on after-school and summer programming, giving students a lot of voice in what needs to happen in the after-school and summer hours to enrich them. Really also puts a great deal of focus on schools as the hubs of neighborhoods. An example, in each of those schools, there is a regular community school supper, what they call a homework supper, where community members, parents, teachers come together to really share what's going on at that school, what the challenges facing them are. That's a real great example of the kinds of things that's happening in the Albuquerque public schools. I think our team came back quite drawn to that approach. I think very much seeing the value of that as a real value added to a community school in Little Rock. In addition, however, there was a concern about some of the same students who have fallen through the cracks in our traditional schools, maybe continuing to fall through the cracks. And so as a result of that, I made a series of interactions, phone calls and video calls with schools around the country that have something of a hybrid approach that combine some of the school as a hub of a community with some of the case management that we saw in the communities and schools approach. And I think there is something very attractive about the hybrid approach. The challenge, of course, is that requires additional funding because it requires additional staffing to play both of those roles. That is a case manager, who might be something more like a social worker, and then that person who is a connector to the community, more a community organizer. That's one of the challenges with the hybrid approach. But one thing that we really want your views on tonight and in the near future is really which of these approaches feels the most right when it comes to education here in Little Rock and what our community school approach should be here in Little Rock. So please voice your comments on that. I want to talk a bit about next steps before turning it over to Mr. Smith, who has some really, I think, quite exciting news for us tonight. The Little Rock School District and the city, we've really been in ongoing conversations about which schools make the most sense for the implementation of the community school model in the next academic year. Now, unquestionably, the COVID-19 pandemic has delayed our work a bit. We very much hoped that we would have already identified these schools. Indeed, we plan to have these town halls back in March in a live way rather than a virtual way, and we hope to be on our way with this work. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. That has slowed this down a bit, but we have continued the ongoing conversations about what schools really should be targeted as the first first cohort of community schools. And we're looking at identifying 4 schools as community schools for next year. There have been several things that have really guided these conversations that are ongoing. One, of course, we are looking at the performance of those schools, which schools have had persistent challenges when it comes to their academic performance. Secondly, we're deeply conscious of the feeder patterns that exist in the district, is that we really have a vision that students will begin at community schools at the elementary stage, and then as they move to middle school, we'll move into a community school, and then ideally by the time they get to high school, we'll be at that stage of building community schools. So we've been conscious of feeder patterns. We've also had to be conscious of physical space. Some of the schools in the Little Rock School District are not particularly amenable to having groups of people come into the school on a regular basis. They're kind of small schools that are constrained in some ways, so we've also had to be conscious of that. And so we are not just being guided by test scores, we're not being just guided by feeder patterns, our physical space, we're really trying to balance all of those approaches. But in the coming weeks, we hope to be able to announce those 4 schools that will become the first core group of community schools. In the next academic year, we hope to roll out a couple more as this begins to build across this district. And this is the way community schools tend to work around the country, is that there's a cohort of schools, and then that begins to snowball across the district as people see the value of community schools. What will then happen throughout the fall is that there will be an intensive needs assessment at the school level, surveying parents, students, community members, and teachers, having conversations in the form of focus groups, possibly virtual focus groups this fall, so that folks can share what they see as the needs of their community and the needs of that school. All of that study will be undertaken in the fall. That will then begin to set the stage for matching the partnerships we know are out there in our community to meet some of those needs. And that really will, we hope, begin to kick off the programmatic aspects of this community school approach in the spring of 21. Now we know 2021 is not going to be a totally normal school year. This is our plan at present, and we very much hope that we can stay on this timeline no matter what. Now, I'll turn it to Mr. Smith now. One of the key players in any community school approach is having that dedicated staff person whose job at the school and whose only job at the school is to make the community-based education work, to bring these partnerships to life in these schools. So therefore, at each of these community schools, there will be a community school coordinator. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Smith, who has some news about that part of our plan moving forward.
Well, thank you, Dr. Barth. First, I'd like to begin by thanking Mayor Frank Scott for having the vision to see the need in our communities to bring this community school model to our city in partnership with the Little Rock School District. So we do appreciate that very much. But as Dr. Barth said, I'm excited this evening to announce that as of this afternoon, we've posted 4 positions in the Little Rock School District for community school site coordinators. And you can go to the Little Rock School District website, www.lrsd.org, and click on employment/HR. And you can go down to, I have to pull my notes out so I can make sure I'm giving you the correct information. Go down to job opportunities. Once you click that tab, it'll bring up a screen that shows all the postings that we have in our current vacancies in our district, and you can apply for one of those site coordinating positions by clicking on Apply Now. Once you click on Apply Now, it will bring up the job description for the site coordinators. So we encourage you to look at that information, study it, and if you're interested in helping move our district and city forward through the community school model by being a site coordinator, we invite you to apply for one of those positions.
And we hope that some of the folks who are drawn to that work are watching tonight, or if you are watching tonight and you know some folks who would be perfect for that role based on their ability to connect with the public and their commitment to public education, we really encourage you to encourage them to look at these positions, because I think it is an incredibly exciting role for those folks who want to make a difference in their communities, who want to work with kids. This is I think, a really great opportunity, and we look forward to moving forward. As you'll see when you apply, there are no schools associated with these individual roles, because we yet haven't announced what 4 schools they are, but we're super excited about that. I just want to say a couple more things, and then I want to get to comments and questions in a second. It's been a number of months now, but Mayor Scott in his State of the City really said, you know, we really want to have this community school model across the entire district. Now, we recognize we're not going to be able to have these funded positions that are really important to the community school model writ large. We hope there comes a day when there are a lot of these positions in the district. That said, importantly, we do want, in the year ahead and the years to follow, we're going to begin elevating the community-based partnerships that are present in every school in this district. And so we may not call these community schools, because I think that might be a little bit of a misnomer, because we don't have the staffing in place. That said, we know that the schools that work best in our district are ones where there are these deep partnerships with faith-based communities, with nonprofits, with the business community. That's what's really an important piece. And so we are going to really begin highlighting, celebrating this community-based education that's happening across the entirety of the Little Rock School District, because we know how important it is. I'm going to put up my email address, jbarth@littlerock.gov. If you don't have comments that come in tonight, please know that I want to hear your ideas. I want to hear your questions. I may not be able to answer them all, but we will get them all answered. And we really want this to be an ongoing conversation. And you know, we apologize that COVID-19 has meant that we can't be in the same room together for these deep conversations. But we still, first off, are looking forward to comments and questions tonight. And importantly, and I think this cannot be emphasized enough, the fall semester is going to be dedicated to needs assessment in each of these 4 schools. And that is when the community really is going to have their voices heard in this conversation. And that's crucial because this can only be done. The needs of that school can only be met if the voices of the teachers, parents, students, and community members around that school are heard. That's the only way that this can work. We know this process will be unsuccessful if we don't get it right in terms of that needs assessment process on the front end, and very importantly, that continues as a conversation thereafter. Mr. Smith, we saw in Albuquerque, for instance, each of the community schools had an ongoing kind of advisory board that was present to really be sure that they were continually asked the question, we've got these new programs, are they working? What can be done to make them better? What do we need to continue to look for to make this a vibrant, exciting place to go to school? I want to look to my colleague, and are comments coming in? Okay, I'm going to refresh here. I think I've got a little technology delay, but we'll get this going here. Hopefully they'll kind of all right. So I do want to I'm going to get some help in terms of a little bit of technology assistance here, but I want to talk a little bit. I think a question that people always have is, how do you pay for these things, right? And as many of you remember, last year the City Board of Directors in Little Rock, under the working partnership with Mayor Scott, they put forward $500,000 dedicated to this work on an ongoing basis. That's super exciting. The district is stepping up, and we anticipate using some federal dollars that are available because of the nature of this program to really bring that to life. So yes, it's the city, yes, it's the school district, but we also know that it will be foundations, it will be corporations who step up and are able to aid in this, assist in this work. And so I think I have all right, awesome. Thank you. We have a bit different. Okay. So one question that came in, well, what could we do to give the schools more voice in saying we want to be community schools? That becomes what are the ways in which that voice on the front end can be established? And we're going to announce some schools. You want to give that a shot? You're the Little Rock School District person.
As we talk about schools having a voice of having the opportunity to be a community school, obviously we always look at all of the needs of our schools based upon a number of factors. And based upon that, I think that we have a potential of looking at a number of schools over the course of not just this year, but years to come, of having schools have an opportunity to be a part of this community school model.
And there is a comment on YouTube about that the community voice really not being recognized. And as someone who was on the State Board of Education for a couple of years, and I know very well the frustrations that this community has felt about not feeling they have a voice about governance of this district, I think that's crucially important. I think what excites me more than anything else about the community school model, and there are tons of things that excite me about it, including good data that it works, anecdotal evidence that it works. When you go into a community school, it feels different than a traditional school. But what excites me ultimately the most is that it is a way at the school level for there to be an ongoing voice for the neighborhood around that school, for that school to be what that neighborhood needs it to be. And so this model is one that actually incorporates in community voice in a way that I don't know that there's any other model of public education out there that has it as fully ingrained as this model does.
I would agree with you.
Yeah. Yes. And I think that and I think too often maybe we have not asked for the voices of students and parents and family members and community members to be as part of the story as we expect it and need it to be in this case. And so that would be my response to one of the concerns that was voiced on that this is just another example of something being done to the district. I see this as the start of a process where the parents and patrons and students and teachers of this district begin to take schools back and make them what they want them to be.
But I would also challenge and encourage individuals to join their local PTA. That is also a vehicle by which parents and community members can have an input in the school by supporting their school through the PTA. So,
yeah, I totally agree with that. Any other comments questions and comments we have? I want to, do we have some coming in? Oh, on my phone. Okay. We got a little technology action going on here. Oh. Okay, I think I entered I think most of those. Am I missing anything that's come in so far? Maybe so. I'm having some okay, we have a comment, Antoine Phillips. You mentioned the advisory boards. Are there other groups that have proven to help and sustain this community school model in other places? I'll talk a little bit about the governance structure that we saw in Albuquerque, Antoine. They had an ongoing governance structure in which the county government, the city government in Albuquerque, and the Albuquerque School District, they had representation on a group, and they made the ongoing decisions about how funding would be distributed, and how, because they had a funding stream that came, they had several funding streams that came in, they made the decisions about how funding would be distributed. They also made decisions about what would be the next community schools that would come on board based on feeder patterns and other things, neighborhoods that were showing particular need when it came to community schools. That is kind of an overarching governance structure. We're talking about exactly those things right now. And so certainly if you have ideas about how we should structure governance around the model itself here in Little Rock, we would love to hear those ideas as well. And that was another point of entry, not at the individual school level, but really more at the system level. And there needs to be community voice on both levels. Okay. All right, all right. Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the site coordinator position? That's a question that's come in. Folks are wanting a little more detail. What's that job going to be? Okay. If they were to encourage somebody to apply, what are we expecting from that person?
Right. So as Dr. Barth mentioned earlier, we believe that the site coordinator is going to be the pivotal role in this whole model. The site coordinator will be responsible for being that single point of contact for the school, working inside the school, coordinating and providing supports for students and families. So that person will be the one who will be the bridge between organizations providing support and the key cog to that hub, as we talk about the community school being the hub of the community, and them reaching out to find spokes to connect back to the hub.
So it's going to take somebody who has first maybe some connection, the ability, some built-in connections, right, but more importantly, the ability to make new partnership, new connections, because they need those partnerships, working with folks like Mr. Smith and myself, who will meet the needs of that school. Right. And so this is going to be one of those jobs where personality matters enormously, a special kind of personality, that ability who has the gift of connecting right, with others.
And we look at this position as someone who will be able to work some nights, some weekends, obviously with those being swapped out for weekdays if weekend events are occurring, but someone who's flexible and, as you said, who can reach out to the community, who understands the community, but also is willing to build new connections that don't exist currently.
And like any individual who's working in a public school, the love of kids and the ability to meet kids where they are.
That's the foremost important thing there.
Exactly. Right. We had a question about implementation. Just to kind of, you may have missed right at the beginning. We will begin implementing this year. We'll announce in the coming weeks 4 schools that will come on board as community schools this coming year. Programmatically, that while the community school coordinators will be online in the fall, and they will be being onboarded, they will be being trained, they will be deeply involved in the needs assessment that we've talked about. We would then really start kicking in some programs in the spring of this year. And so we're about a semester late, and I think we know that's inevitable because of the changing circumstances.
And so besides the personalities that we're looking for, some of the qualifications that are required, we'll be looking for someone with a bachelor's degree in education or health and social work, public policy, human services or related social programs, have at least 2 years of experience in working in an urban public school system, and then have knowledge and understanding of the community. That's going to be the most important piece there for us.
Great. We're getting some other great questions. What community organizations do you expect to partner on these services? And I think it's going to be a variety. It will be some nonprofits that are already doing good work, or we may see some new organizations come to life who meet the needs. So that could be a variety of mentoring programs that are available. It really depends on what the needs are. We could envision faith-based organizations being an important part of this. There will be some programs that are offered that really are a place where foundations really come to the forefront. I think we've seen a great example of really a community school vision in the meals program that has been run out of the Clinton Center in recent months. That's, of course, the Clinton Foundation, a key piece of that story, but it's really been the pulling together of a variety of community partners to get the job done, and that the partnership of existing organizations, I think, will be a crucial part of this. Another question that's come in is, how is this different from Ford NGL? And I'll give a shot, but I'll let you add to it. Ford NGL is a college and career readiness program. It is very much focused. It's a partnership really across all 4 districts in Pulaski County, working with a variety of corporations and nonprofits that are involved in that work. Ford NGL, therefore, is much more of a secondary level focus. I do think that what it shares with Ford NGL is very much focused on building connections between students and businesses in this community and other nonprofits in this community. So I think it does share that connection with the broader community in a very clear way. But this is much more focused not just on the academic components, which I think is central to the Ford NGL vision, sharpening those academic. This is really the variety of other things that are necessary to wrap around the student, to provide activities in the after school or summer hours, and then, of course, to really transform the community around it. And that is not as much of a focus of Ford NGL, which is very much about making the academic components more relevant to students. So I think there are some overlaps, but they are very different as well. Anything to add on that?
Well, I have limited information on Ford NGL because that's a secondary piece for us. But the information I do know, I always like to give analogies. A community school would be like a mother and father nurturing a child. Ford NGL is, once you get to that step, now you're making a choice of career paths. What is it you're going to do in life that we can continue to support that and groom that? So I think that they go hand in hand in a lot of senses.
Yeah, and it will not be surprising that we are, as I think from comments we made earlier, and the fact that Mr. Smith is here, we're going to be very much focused on the elementary level for the initial implementation here. That's not to give anything away. I think that's very much a part of the initial vision. It makes a lot of sense in terms of how.
And I think it's fair to say that potentially we could have a high school that is part of Ford NGL. I always get the letters mixed up. And be a community school.
Yeah, next generation learning.
Thank you.
It took me a while for as well, but yeah, and they fit together very well, and I think that may well happen down the line, because a lot of the after school and summer activities that would be part of the Ford NGL vision are also the kinds of enriching activities that would make sense under the second pillar of the community school model. What did you see that you liked or disliked on your trips to other community schools?
Okay, I'll start.
Give it a shot.
Like you said earlier, the visit to Shreveport with the Cato Parish School District, I like the case management piece. I didn't see where they went beyond the school, though, and that was the limitation. It worked well for them, and so as for us, though, the case management piece was one that I took away from. That I thought was something that would be vital for us, but we do still have to go outside the school and make the school a hub, which that really did not occur in Shreveport. With Albuquerque, what just impressed me is just when the students walked up to the site coordinator and we're talking about the things that were going on and how the site coordinator could respond to them about their academics, about their needs, and then have an opportunity to talk with the principal who was new to Albuquerque. And he said he had never heard of the community school model, but he said it's been the greatest thing for him professionally. It has allowed him to really grow because of the supports that were in place because of the community school model.
Yeah, that was at a middle school that we were at, and just in walking through that middle school in about an hour and a half, we saw a vibrant community garden. We saw a legal clinic that was operating, that was providing important services to kids. We saw a mentor program with, they have a local Air Force base, and men and women had come over from the Air Force base and had mentoring relationships with children. We saw an English language learning class that parents were in, which is a great example of kind of what might be the needs of a neighborhood in the Little Rock School District, around a Little Rock Public School as well.
The clinic.
We saw a clinic that was both physical health and dental health, I believe. So we saw that.
And then we saw volunteers teaching the dance class.
Yeah, and then we saw a great fun dance class with kids just obviously having fun. Oh, and we saw a cooking class. We got a cookie out of it as well, and that was in one afternoon. It was right after school, and it was walking through the school, and it was very vibrant, and the rapport between the educational professionals, but then also some of the volunteers who were coming in to be a part of teaching classes. You could really see the real connectivity and bonds that had been built. That was real, I think, quite exciting. Yeah. So that's a good example of what we really liked in that model. So great, really great question there. And I think in many ways, I think we are drawn to some hybrid approach of some sort. We got to figure out how to make that happen. But we also want your feedback on this. I think we got one more question, and then we'll probably save some of these for next week because we're running short on time. Do we expect this to be focused solely on elementary schools? No. In fact, we very much anticipate that this would we hope, if funding allows, and the program continues, and we see success. We very much anticipate other moving up. I'll ask one. We'll put one more out there before we sign off. What role will the elected school board have in this model? And yes, the Little Rock School District, of course, we are very happy to say will be getting an elected board back at this end of this year. I'll put a plug in. It's almost time to file for school board, and so encourage folks to consider running themselves, or encouraging folks they trust to run. So side note on that. Ultimately at the end of the day, the governance system, just as the City Board of Directors voted to put money into this model on that end, it will be a situation where the Little Rock School Board is going to have a good deal of voice, and therefore is very important. I will be meeting with those folks who have signed up for the school board elections to run for office just after filing ends, and talking with them about the community school model so that they have as good an understanding as possible and are able to ask these same kinds of questions about the model, which they may have a lot of voice in down the road. Of course, ultimately, it will be the community's voice as they speak to their elected representatives about what they see that they like and they think can be improved in the district. Mr. Smith, thank you so much for taking time tonight. We'll be back next week. We hope those of you, I know there was a community action advisory board meeting tonight, so some folks who are deeply invested in education are watching that tonight. We'll be here next week and look forward to answering more questions. But thank you all so much for caring about public education in the city of Little Rock. We're ready to get moving as we transform education in our city. Thank you all very much.